Okay, I've already started. This new camera, I don't know. It just starts recording without me having to hit the button, and I don't understand it. Hopefully it's recording right now. Okay, so um, yes, so this is Faith and Books, and I'm going to make this kind of a, it's going to do two jobs. It's going to be a wind up of Nonfiction November and what I'm planning to do in December. And I'm not going to make a video for a couple of weeks because next weekend I'm going on a retreat. I'm going on a personal silent retreat I have never done in my life. It's about an hour away. It's at a monastery. I get there Friday afternoon and I leave Sunday afternoon. I get my own little cell with a bathroom, and they provide you 3 meals a day, and they even have gluten-free stuff. And you can pray with the monks. You can do the liturgy of the hours with the monks. You can go to mass, daily mass. They have confession. They have spiritual direction. They have holy hour. So, exposition of the Blessed Sacrament. So, yeah, so I have never done this before. And I don't know if I'm going to hate it and feel really lonely, or if it's going to be relaxing and I'll really be able to get a lot of reading done. Theological reading is what I'm hoping to do. So anyway, I'm excited about that. So that's next weekend. So I'm not gonna make any videos for a couple of weeks. So today is the first day of Advent. So Happy New Year to those so celebrating. So we have to get our Advent. I bought a kit where you roll up these beeswax candles, but we haven't made them yet, so we have to make them before tonight, before we light the first candle. And it's a Sunday morning. It's very cold and gray out. It's supposed to rain all day, so right after I do this, I'm gonna go over to my CSA. I signed up for a winter CSA, and I'm gonna try and pick up my food before it starts raining. So anyway, enough preliminaries. What did I read in November? Well, of course, I had all these grandiose plans and they didn't work out. I think I already said that I finished the second half of My Family and Other Animals, which is the first book in the Corfu trilogy. So I finished that, and I didn't read the whole book, but I read a substantial amount of the 40-Day Sugar Fast book. And that led me down a rabbit hole, and made me sort of veer off my planned TBR. So the first thing that happened was I did not get on with Henry David Thoreau and Walden. I read about 30%, and I was disappointed. I do think at times he wrote well, but I thought it was kind of uneven. I didn't think he was brilliant throughout. There were little flashes. He does have a lot of quotes you can pull out, but like the first thing that kind of disillusioned me about him was right in the first few pages. I read it on my Kindle, so I don't know exactly what page, but there's that famous quote, the mass of men lead lives of quiet desperation. And that makes him sound like he's this really compassionate guy, right? I mean, that's such a moving, vivid line about, how so many people live in destitution and oppression and all. But in the context, and I think I'm recalling this right, it doesn't come off like that at all, the way it sounds in isolation. He's basically saying, I'm so much better than these other farmers in Concord. Like he's literally dissing the farmers around him because they're in debt and they work so hard to pay off debt, and he's not. He's going to be better than them. But the thing is, if you know a little bit about his background, which I already did because last year, we walked around Walden Pond in November, which is why I wanted to read it this November. And so I learned a little bit about him. And he borrowed the land. Ralph Waldo Emerson gave him the land by Walden Pond. So he didn't have to buy the land. He was just squatting on someone else's land, right? And he didn't have a family to support. He was all by himself. And the thing is, his family all lived in that area. So he would go over to his mother's and she'd do his laundry and he'd eat dinner over there. He wasn't self-sufficient at all, but he like really hypes up his own self-sufficiency. So he talks about how he had a garden and he grew, you know, corn and beans, which is great. And he sold a little bit of it. So he made a little bit of money that way, which is great. And he did build this cabin, and that's really cool. He's a 27-year-old guy with nothing else to do. He went out and built a cabin. I mean, that's great too. I like all that stuff. But it's not like he was truly self-sufficient, and yet he builds it up like he was, and he just comes off as really arrogant. So I just wasn't taking to him, and it was mildly interesting, but it wasn't interesting enough to force myself. So I'm glad I tried it. But I just didn't have the interest. And what happened was I really got interested in reading about nutrition and preparing for the sugar fast that I'm starting today. And I don't, pray for me, I do not feel prepared for it at all. Even though I've been doing all this reading and everything, I'm like, I don't know. I have built it up in my head. I'm watching a flock of Canada geese. Oh, there's some there too. Anyway, what was I saying? Oh, so instead of reading stuff that I planned to read, like Walden, I read this book, Eat to Beat Disease, The New Science of How Your Body Can Heal Itself, William Lee, MD. So there's so many quacks out there touting, you know, various diets, and, you know, it's very hard to know, you know, who isn't selling snake oil. But this guy, I really like him. He's an actual Harvard-trained doctor. He's a medical researcher, and he founded this foundation called Angiogenesis Foundation. He's been going for 25 years, I think he said. And he's actually gotten, I think he said 41 or something like that, treatments or like pharmaceuticals, I guess, FDA approved. So he's in that industry, but he was very frustrated by it because as great as medicine is and has become, it has a lot of side effects. It's not always as effective as hoped. And it takes a long time, it takes a long time to develop and get out. It just has to. And so it's limited. And he really thinks that conventional medicine does not stress prevention enough. And because he'd been doing all these research on chemicals that help with, he focuses on angiogenesis, which I'll get to in a minute. He was able to compare himself and also be able to analyze lots and lots of studies, comparing the chemicals in these pharmaceuticals with the naturally occurring chemicals in plants, in food. So we evolved to eat this food, and this food, you know, gives us the what we need in order to be healthy. And so, and yeah, he says, health is not the absence of disease. We actually have 5 processes. We have 5 systems in our body that maintain our health. And let's see, I'll go through it really quickly. It's angiogenesis, which is your blood vessels. Your blood vessels, we have 60,000 miles of blood vessels in our bodies. And I feel like I sound like I have a cold. I have a cold. Again, I've had a million colds. But anyway, 60,000 miles of blood vessels in our bodies. And they're vital because that's what gives oxygen and nutrition to our cells. So, you know, they're absolutely vital. And so, but if they go awry, if something happens, that can lead to the development of cancer. So he's been studying blood vessels. And a lot of diseases, it's because the blood vessels aren't working right, or growing where they shouldn't grow, or something's gone amiss. A lot of diseases, I think he said over 70 diseases, like blood vessels are sort of the key thing. I didn't know any of this, and I know nothing about medicine. So, and I read the book really too fast, so I could have missed stuff, but I found it absolutely fascinating. It was definitely a 5-star read. Anyway, so there's angiogenesis is our first system, the blood vessels. Then there's regeneration, or our stem cells, because, you know, that's what allows our skin to heal when we get a cut. And like, even he says, if, you know, you lose part of your liver, it'll actually grow back. So your stem cells are another important part of healing. Then your DNA, and this was the part I understood the least, but your DNA is not only a blueprint, but somehow it's active in trying to keep bad genes shut off and good genes on. So if that goes awry, then, and you have a bad gene activate, it could, lead to illness or disease or cancer. And then there's the bioimmune or gut microbiome, the gut microbiome, which is like the new cutting edge kind of thing that you hear the most about, or at least I do, because they didn't know that our digestive system was so involved in our overall health. Although I think people always kind of knew that, intuited that. And then there's your regular immune system that we think of, the white blood cell is being made in the bone marrow and that sort of thing. So those are 5 systems that all need to they're very complex systems that all need to function in order to maintain health. And what they need these certain chemicals and these nutrients and things in order to maintain themselves at an optimum level. And we get that in our food. And so the whole book is about how to eat to beat disease, hence the title. And what he does is he goes through, his theory is you've got 5 systems. So eat 5 foods, one of each, every day, eat 5 foods, include 5 foods that each support one of those systems. Right. So, and the foods, what I really like about him is he's not pushing supplements. He's not pushing some weird kind of diet or anything like that. It's really ordinary stuff. And he's like, I follow him on Instagram because this book, it's like, there's new studies coming out every day. And so he's analyzing them, figuring out if they're valid, if it's okay to go, and promulgate what this study came up with. And I like that he's very logical, he's reasonable, he's cautious, he's saying it's gotta be backed up by good solid studies. So the foods that he's recommending, none of them are that outlandish or anything. It's the way you prepare them, and it's the way you balance them, that every day you make sure you're eating. He's very, very much eat lots. It's a Mediterranean diet. Eat lots and lots and lots of vegetables and fruit and a little bit of meat and, really avoid sugar and that sort of thing. So I thought it was an excellent book. And he came out with another book, which is of recipes, which I would really like to get. I tried to buy it over this weekend because I'm finding it awkward to get into his system of how you figure out what you're going to eat, the 5 foods you're going to eat each day and that sort of thing. It's kind of awkward on the Kindle, so I wanted to get it in not a hardback, but paperback. But even Amazon was sold out. So, and he's got I think a really popular Instagram, and I follow that. And the Instagram is just him with addendums, like, okay, we just came out and there's a valid study and it's backed up by this other study over here, and they're saying, you should eat pears because pears, and then he'll go into what chemicals pears have that help whatever system in your body that would use it to maintain health. So excellent book. I really liked it. I found it really inspirational. I have to go back and reread it, and I'm going to try some of the recipes that he has in the back of the book. So that was my big, great discovery for Nonfiction November. Then the other thing that I started reading right after, once I finished that, and I wanted another Kindle read, because I've been reading a lot on my Kindle just because I have been getting sick so much, and it always seems to affect my, I guess because I'm having headaches, and it's so much easier to read from the Kindle. So the next one that I read was, I'm still reading, I'm 44% in. It's the perfect antidote to Thoreau, because it's a contemporary of his, more or less, I believe. He actually went to the grade school that Ralph Waldo Emerson had for a while. This guy Dana, I think his name's Richard Henry Dana, and he wrote 2 years before the Mass. And I just happened to download that at some point, I don't even remember when, on my Kindle, because I get emails from bookgorilla.com, and they have really deeply discounted books. And so sometimes I look through those and I download stuff. And for some reason, I downloaded this book, and I didn't know anything more than the title and vaguely that it was about sailors, right? Well, we're going to do the Hornblower read along in 2023. So I like reading nautical fiction anyway. So I thought, oh, okay, I'll try that. Well, it's not fiction. It's a memoir. This guy, I like him so much more than Thoreau. He was at Harvard, and he got the measles. He was really sick. He got over it, but it had affected his eyes. So they said he couldn't study anymore. So instead, he decides he's going to become a sailor. So he becomes like a regular sailor. Like, he doesn't go off on a cruise somewhere, the European, I don't know what they did, but, where they do the tour. Yeah, the European tour. He didn't do that. He becomes a sailor, a working class sailor, and he sails from Boston all the way around Cape Horn to the coast of California, where he works for a while, getting hides that they would take back to New England to be made into leather. So that was like the industry along the coast there. And he sails up and down. There's a lot of California history in it. From San Francisco down to San Diego, back and forth. He learns how to treat these hides to get into, put them into the ships to ship them back to Boston. And right now he was kind of despairing because it seemed like the ship he was on, which had a lot of issues, the captain wasn't so good. He wasn't going to go back, and he wasn't sure how he was going to get home, and he was thinking it's going to be 4 years, and he really wants to go back to school. He wants to get back to Harvard. And so he winds up switching with somebody on another boat. So now he's just gotten on that boat, and he's starting to sail home, and he's excited about it. And it's a much better run ship. The captain's much better at managing things. So he's really impressed. So anyway, it's a really interesting story. The thing is, Walden is all about Thoreau, whereas this one, he just wants to inform you of the plight. What were the plight of sailors? What did they do? What did they experience? What did they see? And he does interject himself, of course, because it's his memoirs. But it's so lacking in ego. So. And this guy was contemporary, and while Thoreau is like scorning and sneering the common man, this guy was actually joining in, and just so much more active and less cynical, and just a much better person. He just comes off much, much better. So I'm really enjoying that one, and hopefully I'll finish it by the end of November. So it's November 27th now. Got to 44%. So about the end of December, I should finish it. So I'm also still reading City of God, and this can move into December. My plans for December are to finish up things. So I'm going to finish up the City of God. I'm hoping I'll read a big chunk of it. I want to read chapter 20 this week, and then when I go on my retreat, I want to read book 21, and that means I'll only have the very last book left for the rest of December. So I will finish this in a year, and I'm excited about that. That has been a year-long challenge. I'll be really satisfied that I finished it. The other thing I really want to finish, where is it? Oh yeah, let me get these books out. Hold on a second. The other thing I really want to finish is way back at the beginning of the year, I started Don Quixote. This is my second time through, and I got that far. I was listening to it, though, on LibriVox, but my app stopped working, and then I just forgot about it. So I want to finish up. I'm going to finish up Don Quixote. That's what I'm hoping to do. And then I'm also going to finish up reading all the Palliser books this year in 2022. And even though I bought the book, I'm planning to listen to this after I finish the Pickwick Papers. That was the other thing. That's obviously not nonfiction, but I've been listening to Pickwick Papers. I really gotta kind of up my time listening to it, because I think I'm listening to it too slowly, and it'll last all December if I don't focus on it more. So I'm going to try to listen to that, or maybe I'll listen to that while I'm driving to the retreat back and forth. Yeah, so I gotta get more intense about that. But I am thoroughly enjoying Pickwick Papers. I love it. I really, really love it. I laugh out loud every time I listen to it, and the guy who reads it is absolutely delightful, and Dickens' writing is absolutely delightful, and all the characters are great, and it's such a pleasure listening to that book. I'm really enjoying it. But as soon as I'm done with Pickwick Papers, I'm gonna listen to The Duke's Children, and that way I will finish reading all 6 novels by Anthony Trollope in the Palliser series. So 3 things to finish up: Don Quixote, City of God, the Palliser series. And then in November, I just didn't do the Rating Project Gutenberg, which I really wanted to do. Oh, I also wanted to do the Agatha Christie. I just haven't gotten traction on that one. This is the 2nd month in a row where I haven't done it. So I'm not going to do the Miss Marple read along. Obviously, it was too much. And I didn't do the Rating Project Gutenberg. They were going to read Rasselas by Samuel Johnson. Never got to it. I wanted to read Candide by Voltaire, because Rasselas was apparently written in response to Candide. I didn't do either of those things. So, yeah, that didn't happen. But Christy Lewis is at Dostoevsky in Space, was one of the hosts of Rating Project Gutenberg, and she's also doing, with a bunch of other people, this is an Advent read-along, The Man Born to be King by Dorothy L. Sayers. This has the tiniest type. I might bring a magnifying glass with me, but I'm hoping between City of God and this, I'll just read a lot of this next weekend. Those are the 2 books I'm going to really concentrate on in between praying. So those are my December plans. The Man Born to be King is my Advent read, finishing up those 3 other things. And that's it. I'm not doing anything else. So, all right, 22 minutes. I'm sorry, I just babbled on and on. Just a lot to say. And I hope you are doing well. I hope you had a good November. I hope you had a great Thanksgiving. And I hope you have a wonderful Advent. And yeah, I hope you're doing well, and I hope you're reading well, and I will see you in a couple of weeks. Okay, bye-bye. Take care.